Is it possible to close a deal, to get a job in a field where they said you must have 7 years of experience, 5 years of experience, but you have just graduated with no experience? Is it possible to get a job? The answer is yes. And we are going to find it out in a very powerful story, a biblical story from the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 32 to 39. In that passage, there was a job interview between the King Saul and David. David was recruited to go and fight Goliath. He didn't go by himself right directly, but he passed the interview test in front of King Saul before winning the job with no experience. We're going to talk about that right after this. We all know the story. I don't want to linger too much about the story here, but I will just briefly paraphrase quickly what happened. David was sent by his father to give some food to his 3 brothers that are in the army. They are being threatened by the towering Goliath, who was threatening the whole army of Israel. And he's saying if they can beat one person to come and fight. So David heard the challenge, and when he got there, he heard the challenge. He said, okay, what are we going to do to the person who will take the challenge? And they told him what they will do to the person. And he said, okay, I'm ready for the tasks. And they said, really, you? So they were so intrigued, they brought him to the king and said, King Saul, this guy is saying he can do something. And there began the interview between David and King Saul. So what happened? When he got there, he said, King, don't worry, I'm gonna get this job done. This guy, don't worry about this guy. I'm paraphrasing. And he said, the king said, really, you little lad, you boy, this guy has been fighting since his youth. How do you think you can handle this? And here is the answer of David. David said, when I was herding the sheep of my father in the bush, right, where nobody is looking at me, if a lion or a bear comes to take any of them, I go after and take it. And if they turn against me, I just tear them up and kill them. The same way I kill them animals is the same way I'm going to kill this uncircumcised Philistine today. And the God who helped me to have that victory is going to help me this time also. So King Saul said, okay, take my armor, take my shield and my sword and go. So he tried to take it, but he said, no, I prefer my slingshot. I prefer my stone and all those things. I prefer the thing I can use. So what are the lessons from this story that I've just paraphrased quickly? Number 1, if you don't have much experience to get a job, here is the first thing. Go out there to seek opportunities. Find a company which is going through a tough problem that you have the capacity to solve. That's the first thing to do. This is what that David did here. They had a problem. He figured out that the army had a problem that he could solve. So he said, I can take up the challenge. They said, okay, they brought him to interview. Remember, so when he got to the interview, they asked him the question, who are you? Tell us more about you. David didn't say, I'm David, I'm 17, no, he didn't say that. He went straight to the goal. He said, I can do this job. They say, why do you think you can do this job? What makes you different? And he said, I used to fight where nobody is looking. In the corner, only me and the animals in the bush. And I used to win over the animal. If I could win over those animals successfully, I can reproduce this in this your problem and find solution for you. You see that confidence? If you can talk that way and relate your past experiences to the situation at hand, you are going to win any kind of contract. The problem with we Francophone people mostly is we think I need to get in a company before starting to behave as a person who is serious, who can do a job. So until I am in a company, I'm not going to behave as someone who can do something. So all my little experiences that are not in a company, I will just discard them. They are useless since they are not in a company. That's the problem we have. And we think when they say 5 year in this domain, you need to have the 5 year in that domain. You don't need to have 5 year in that domain. You need to have 5 year of being a responsible person, 5 years of being proactive, 5 years of being creative in the little space you are in when nobody is there. That is what's going to build your confidence. Self-confidence is not talking out of hubris, egomania talk based on nothing. No. Self-confidence is the positive knowing that I have already done something, and if you give me the chance, I will reproduce it no matter the scale. That's what is self-confidence. This is what David did. And he went on to say, the God who helped me to win will help me this time also. He had faith in God. You need to have faith. Because if you don't have faith, no matter how confident you are, you cannot make it. And finally, when King Saul gave his armor and shield and sword to David, he took it first, then gave it back and said, I can use this stuff. You know what they are telling us there? Your weaknesses are very important to be revealed in a job interview. You need to tell us. Some people think being confident means having strength only. That's not true. If you know your strength but you are clueless about your weakness, you are in trouble. Because the strength of your strengths can only be found in your weaknesses that you are ignoring. So knowing your strength and explaining away your weaknesses is self-hatred. Finally, David knows his strengths and he knows his weaknesses, things he cannot use. He knows what he's competent at and know where he's not competent. You got to know what makes you competent and what makes you incompetent. You must be truthful. You don't want to lie. Imagine David took the sword of Saul to go over there. Could he win? Nobody knows. But when he refused, he had enough confidence to say, no, I have this weakness here. But let me tell you this, even though I have this weakness, I know certain things that I'm competent at. I can still use it to win this war. And guess what? King Saul signed the contract and said, okay, go. I'm with you. Yes. It took the validation of Saul for David to go and fight Goliath. Very important point I think we need to be mindful of. So yes, there was a job interview there. David was recruited, but David was not recruited out of pity. No. He was recruited and he persuaded King Saul through his speech, through how he sold himself to the task. And he won that fight. This is how we are supposed, in my opinion, according to the test, perform job interview to win. Find a problem a company is dying to solve that you have expertise in. Go there and sell your strengths, your past wins, and don't forget to admit where you are not competent and what you cannot use also. But stress always on what you can do and have faith in God always. You may not have 5 years in the domain because David, mind you, David had never been in the army before. Never. But he won the war. So people who say you need to have expertise in that field necessarily, you don't need. As long as you have dealt with something elsewhere, if you take the same work ethic, the same mindset, the same philosophy, the same discipline, you can perform better if you get trained or you follow through. It's always the same thing. So you don't need to have expertise 5 years in the domain first. If you can have 5 years in your domain, well done, using the same principles, you can replicate anywhere you go. This is my message. My name is Apollinaire Apostix Kekere. I'm a transformational teacher. I'm a critical thinker. And it's always a pleasure to share this with you. Have a great, great day.